It began like any other quiet evening in the small town of Willow Creek, a community where neighbors waved at each other, where streetlights flickered warmly over clean sidewalks, and where violent crime seemed like something that only happened in the news. But at 8:47 p.m. on a windy Thursday night, a voicemail shattered that illusion forever. The recipient, 27-year-old Anna Morales' best friend, Jasmine Lee, was in her kitchen when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, Anna's name. She let it go to voicemail, thinking she'd call her back in a minute. When Jasmine pressed play a few minutes later, she dropped her coffee mug, shattering it on the floor. Anna's voice came through, weak, trembling, and bleeding desperation into every word. "Jas, I don't think I'm gonna make it. He's still here." There was a gasp, the sound of something metal clattering. Then silence. Jasmine's hands shook as she replayed it, trying to make sense of what she'd just heard. Anna's breathing was labored. Every inhale sounded like pain itself. And in the background, faint but clear, was the sound of a man's voice saying something she couldn't quite make out. This wasn't just a random attack. Anna knew her killer, and she'd just left a breadcrumb trail that could crack the case open. Anna Morales wasn't the kind of woman anyone expected to end up in a headline. At 29, she was a youth counselor passionate about helping teenagers who had been through trauma. She'd grown up in Willow Creek herself, the daughter of Cuban immigrants, and had fought through her own difficult childhood. Friends described her as sunshine in a human body, someone who always remembered birthdays, who brought extra food to work for anyone who forgot their lunch, and who had an uncanny ability to sense when someone was having a bad day. But there was another side to Anna, one her closest friends knew well. For months, she'd been dealing with a toxic ex-boyfriend, Daniel Carter, a charming but controlling man she'd dated for over a year before breaking things off. She'd confided in Jasmine just 2 weeks earlier that Daniel hadn't taken the breakup well. There were late-night texts, unexpected chance meetings outside her work, a sudden appearance at her favorite cafe. Anna had even filed a police report, but like so many cases involving non-physical harassment, it hadn't gone anywhere. The voicemail would later prove what Anna had been trying to tell everyone, that Daniel was not just angry. He was dangerous. The night of the attack, Anna had finished work around 7:30 p.m. CCTV footage from a nearby street camera showed her walking toward her small apartment complex, bundled in a green scarf against the wind. At 8:12 p.m., her upstairs neighbor heard muffled voices, one male, one female. She assumed it was just an argument between friends. At 8:18 p.m., the sound of something heavy hitting the floor made the neighbor pause, but she brushed it off. At 8:40 p.m., Anna made that fateful call to Jasmine. She didn't dial 911, and detectives later theorized that Anna didn't have time, or that she knew she wouldn't be able to explain everything before she lost consciousness. She used her last moments to call the one person she trusted most, leaving behind her final, chilling testimony. When Jasmine heard the voicemail, panic shot through her body like electricity. She called Anna's phone, no answer. She called again, still nothing. Without hesitation, Jasmine called 911. Her voice cracked as she told the dispatcher, "My best friend is in trouble. She's hurt. Someone's there with her. Please send someone now." The dispatcher tried to calm her while officers were dispatched to Anna's address. Jasmine, shaking, grabbed her car keys and sped toward Anna's apartment, heart pounding so hard it hurt. She got there before the police. The front door was slightly ajar. Jasmine froze at the threshold, terrified of what she might see inside. Officers arrived moments later, pulling Jasmine back for her safety. They entered, weapons drawn, and found Anna lying on her living room floor, a deep wound to her abdomen. Blood soaked through her blouse, pooling on the hardwood. She was still alive, barely. Paramedics rushed in, working frantically to stabilize her. As they wheeled her out, she reached for Jasmine's hand, but no words came. Inside the apartment, there was no sign of forced entry. On the coffee table sat a half-drunk cup of tea and a phone charger plugged into the wall. On the floor, near Anna's feet, was a silver bracelet, one Jasmine recognized instantly as belonging to Daniel Carter. Daniel was easy to find. He was at his apartment less than 2 miles away. When questioned, he claimed he hadn't seen Anna in weeks. But his story began to unravel almost immediately. His alibi, a supposed evening at a friend's house, fell apart when that friend told police he hadn't seen Daniel in months. Even more damning was the fact that Daniel's fingerprints were found on Anna's front door handle, on the teacup, and on the silver bracelet. Still, without direct proof he had attacked her, the case wasn't airtight. The voicemail changed everything. Investigators obtained the voicemail from Jasmine's phone. Audio experts enhanced the background noise, isolating the faint male voice. When played clearly, the words were chilling. "You shouldn't have left me, Anna." That sentence, combined with the sounds of a struggle, positioned Daniel not just as a person of interest, but as the likely attacker. The voicemail, spoken while Anna was bleeding out, became both her dying statement and the most powerful piece of evidence in the case. News of Anna's condition spread quickly through Willow Creek. Vigils began outside her apartment building, candles flickering in the cold night air. Friends, co-workers, and even strangers stopped by to leave flowers, photos, and handwritten notes. The voicemail, its content not yet public, became the subject of hushed speculation. People couldn't stop wondering, how could something like this happen here? And more importantly, would Anna survive to tell the full story herself? Anna spent 3 days in critical condition. Surgeons worked for hours to repair internal damage, but the blood loss had been severe. Detectives waited anxiously, hoping she might wake and identify her attacker. Jasmine never left her side, sleeping in the hospital chair, clutching the voicemail as if replaying it could somehow bring Anna back. On the 4th day, at 6:23 a.m., Anna's heart gave out. She never regained consciousness. Her voicemail was now, legally, a dying declaration, admissible in court. Anna's funeral was standing room only. Jasmine spoke through tears, promising to make sure her voice is heard. Detectives moved quickly, arresting Daniel Carter for second-degree murder. The voicemail would be the prosecution's star witness, the haunting proof of his presence and intent. But as the trial approached, Daniel's defense team had a strategy, one that would twist the truth, attack Anna's credibility, and force Jasmine to relive the worst night of her life. The fight for justice was just beginning. Daniel Carter's defense attorney, Mark Ellison, was known for his aggressive cross-examinations and ability to sow doubt in jurors' minds. His strategy was clear: attack the reliability of the voicemail. He claimed the background voice could have been anyone, that Anna's emotional state made her mistaken about who attacked her. And most controversially, he hinted that Anna might have been involved with someone dangerous other than Daniel. The implication was cruel, but it was calculated. If he could blur the lines just enough, reasonable doubt might save his client. When Jasmine testified, the courtroom was silent. She described receiving the voicemail, the fear that gripped her, and the horror of finding Anna on the floor. Ellison tried to rattle her. "Ms. Lee, is it possible you wanted this voicemail to point to Mr. Carter because you disliked him?" Jasmine's voice didn't waver. "I didn't want it to point to anyone. I wanted my best friend alive. And that man is the reason she's not." Her words landed like a punch, but the trial was far from over. The prosecution brought in Dr. Melanie Rhodes, an audio forensic specialist. She walked the jury through spectrogram readings, showing how the male voice in the voicemail matched Daniel Carter's voice print with over 98% certainty. "This isn't just similar," she explained. "This is his voice." The jurors leaned in, some glancing at Daniel. For the first time, his confident smirk faltered. Daniel took the stand against his attorney's advice. His story was a twisting, self-serving narrative. He'd gone to Anna's apartment to talk. She'd been distant. And then someone else had arrived, a man he didn't know. He claimed he'd left before anything happened. But when pressed on why his bracelet and fingerprints were found at the scene, he stumbled. His excuse, that he might have touched things the last time he visited, sounded flimsy. The moment came when the prosecution played Anna's voicemail for the court. The room held its breath as her weak, trembling voice filled the speakers. The jurors heard the desperation, the gasps of pain, and the male voice saying, "You shouldn't have left me, Anna." Some jurors looked visibly shaken. One woman dabbed her eyes with a tissue. This wasn't just evidence. This was Anna speaking from beyond the grave. The prosecutor's closing argument was simple yet devastating. Anna Morales used her last breaths to tell us what happened. She didn't get to testify in person, but she did testify. You heard her, you felt her, and you know who she was talking about. Ellison's closing was an appeal to skepticism. You're being asked to convict a man based on a few words spoken in chaos. Words you can't even be 100% sure of. The jury would soon decide whose story would survive. After 8 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The foreperson's voice was steady. We, the jury, find the defendant, Daniel Carter, guilty of second-degree murder. Gasps filled the courtroom. Jasmine closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. Daniel stared ahead, expression blank, as if he'd just realized the walls around him were closing in. The judge, citing the brutality of the attack and Anna's vulnerability, sentenced Daniel to 38 years in prison without parole. As he was led away, Daniel finally spoke, not to the court, not to the judge, but to Jasmine. This isn't over. It sent a chill down her spine. But she knew Anna had already won. Her voice had carried the truth farther than Daniel ever could. In the months after the trial, Jasmine launched the Ana Morales Foundation, dedicated to helping victims of stalking and intimate partner violence. She worked with lawmakers to strengthen harassment laws, ensuring that early warning signs were taken seriously. The voicemail, once a source of unbearable pain, became a rallying cry. At awareness events, Jasmine would play it, telling audiences, "This is what ignoring the signs sounds like. Let's make sure no one else's voice is recorded too late." 1 year after Anna's death, Jasmine returned to the apartment building where it happened. She stood on the sidewalk as the wind rattled the streetlight above, remembering the night everything changed. She pressed play on her phone one last time. Anna's voice came through, weak, scared, but unmistakably brave. In that moment, Jasmine realized something. Anna's final voicemail wasn't just a plea for help. It was proof that even in her last moments, Anna was fighting, not just to survive, but to be heard. And because she was heard, justice found its way to the truth. If you or someone you know is experiencing stalking or abuse, please don't wait. Speak up, reach out, and take every threat seriously. Share this story, not for the tragedy, but for the warning it carries. Let's keep voices like Anna's from being the last thing we ever hear from the people we love.